Thank you, all of us, who are joining us today, and all of you. The special legislative session to provide COVID relief for hardworking people and businesses has concluded. I applaud the General Assembly for doing so much so quickly to help Coloradans get through a very challenging winter. I want to start by thanking Senate President Leroy Garcia, Speaker Casey Becker, Speaker-elect Alec Arnett, Majority Leader Steve Fenberg, as well as all of the legislators and staff who went above and beyond for the people of our state. I want to thank the minority party. I want to thank their leaders, Leader Holbert, Leader Neville, and so many others who really rose at the call of the time. Having a legislative session operationally was not the easiest thing. But being able to not only get through it, but be immensely productive on urgent matters that the people of Colorado need really just speaks to the strong character and abilities of the men and women that the people of Colorado have elected on both sides of the aisle to serve under the Golden Dome. There's a lot of folks who are struggling to put food on their table, to pay their rent. There's small business owners who aren't sure whether they can keep their doors open because of the pandemic and not sure about what the next few months bring. It was 2 weeks ago that I stood with President Garcia and Speaker-elect Garnett to announce that in the absence of federal action, we would be convening a special session to address the urgent challenges that people face in the pandemic. Today, I can say that I'm proud as governor that the men and women of our legislature have risen to the occasion and taking critical bipartisan steps towards bridging the gap, addressing this challenge, helping small businesses and individuals through the very challenging and dark winter months as we await the vaccine and the end of the pandemic in short order. Now, to be clear, there's no way that Colorado or any state on their own can give people the support they need, or small businesses the support they need to get through the end of this pandemic unscathed. And we knew that going into that. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't use every resource we have available as a state to provide relief for those who need it the most. This very week, over 400,000 Coloradans are receiving a $375 direct stimulus payment. I've heard from many who it's already shown up in their account. And I want to thank legislative leadership and JBC for their collaboration on that important action. And this week, the General Assembly passed critical bipartisan legislation that is really going to help keep Colorado afloat as we prepare to build back stronger when the pandemic ends. Together, we're taking steps to improve internet access for students and educators and families, giving a much needed boost to childcare, who in many ways have been on the front lines of this virus, increasing access to critical food pantry programs for those in need, helping bridge the gap on rent and utility payments for Coloradans who've been hit the hardest so they don't lose their light or their heat over winter, and creating a lifeline for small businesses and restaurants that are at the very heart of our communities through assistance for those that have severe capacity restrictions, as well as tax relief from sales tax and licensing fees for bars and restaurants. This is not the end of the conversation. There's more that the federal government needs to do. And yes, there's more that the legislature will be able to talk about when they convene as they ordinarily do in due time. But you know what? This is going to help a lot of people and small businesses get through the next couple months. And we're hopeful that Congress will take action and give Coloradans, and by the way, Americans across our nation, the support that we need to get through this dark time in our nation's history and the world's history, so that we can rebuild even stronger than before. I'm very proud of the work that the members of our legislature accomplished this week under very difficult conditions, and that we came together for the people as a democratic republic is intended to function. But the work isn't done. And in many ways, there's important work that you have. Wearing a mask around others, even if you don't like it, even if you're annoyed by it, wearing a mask reduces the spread of the virus by about 50%, if not more. Staying at least 6 feet away from others. Avoiding social interactions with people outside your household. Life will not always be like this. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We expect to be administering the very first vaccinations in the next couple weeks to many healthcare workers on the front line. But we can't let up. We need to do better. We need to do more to protect and to support one another, as the legislature is doing financially and economically, and as I know that each and every one of you are in protecting your neighbors, your coworkers, your family, and your friends. Thank you, and I'm happy to turn it over to Senate President Leroy Garcia.
Thank you, Governor. It's great to see you. We are extremely proud of the work that we've just finished accomplishing. As you know, we set an objective for accomplishing this important work, which started in the Senate, focusing on providing this relief to many small businesses here in Colorado, to ensure that we were providing money through Senate Bill 3 for energy assistance for utilities, and also making money available for the emergency fund for the pandemic that we face. We set an assertive goal, and we came together as an entire body in the Senate. And I'm very proud of the work of my fellow colleagues on the Democratic side and the Republican side to be able to work on issues that are important for Coloradans. As you shared, Governor, and we share the same sentiment that there's still more work to be done. But we recognize here in Colorado that we roll up our sleeves, we get that work done, and by no means will this solve all the challenges we face. We face some daunting challenges the months ahead of us. But it served as an important reminder of when we come together, the important work we can accomplish. And so I'm proud that many of these bills, all of these bills, passed with bipartisan support, with big margins and healthy discussions, and we did it in a safe way. And we have much to learn from it and how we can approach ourselves coming back in the session in January and February. So, my thanks is to all of you, and we have more work to do, but very proud of the work that we have accomplished together. That I'll turn it over back to the Governor or to the Speaker.
Yeah, and thank you. And the Senate President, of course, will be returning as Senate President. But Speaker Becker got to have another go at the legislature as Speaker. And thank you, Speaker, for responding to the call of duty, organizing the caucus, getting it done under unprecedented circumstances, right? Under unprecedented circumstances. So I'll turn it over to Speaker Becker.
Thanks everyone for being here today. Thank you, Governor Polis. I think it was really worthwhile for us to come in, and I certainly hadn't expected to have another few days up at the dais, but there was, I think, a really strong sense of bipartisanship and camaraderie that we really wanted to do what was right for Colorado. And what's right for Colorado right now is passing the assistance they need and helping small businesses. Helping people pay rent and get food on the table, and that's what we did. It's certainly challenging times. I think the effort we made to get bills done quickly, to come up with safety protocols, to figure out everything that needed to happen to make this session was absolutely worth it. So it's a really great positive note to go out on, and appreciate the Governor for initiating this call, reaching out to us, and appreciate both sides of the aisle for coming together and getting this all done.
And we have available for answering questions from the media, Speaker Designee Alec Garnett, as well as Senate Majority Leader Steve Fenberg, who are also joining us on this call. And we'll turn it over to the media for your questions.
Governor Polis and members of the legislative leadership, Marshall Zellinger, 9 News. Two things, and one specific to the Governor, but one to the Governor is about the provision in the small business bill that's not a mandate, but suggests that the executive branch continue to develop a framework to certify businesses that demonstrate exemplary compliance with public health orders, a 5-star variance program like Mesa County. How close would we be to something from your office that says, here's what that criteria would look like statewide? And is it something that would come from the state? And to anybody here, I feel like this is a broken record question. Everything was done bipartisan over the last 3 days. I don't see a Republican on this call. Why?
Thank you. And by the way, if the Republicans would like to invite me to a post special session call with them, I'd be happy to do that. This is the one with Democratic leadership, and we can certainly reach out and see if they're interested in it. I think everybody was magnanimous about their praise for the bipartisan work of the legislature. Obviously, the Speaker and Senate President of the majority party here on this call. So I also want to indicate that we are going to be, it'll be interesting how we're going to sign these bills. So this is a little aside. So as you know, I have COVID. So they'll be delivered to me. I will take them out of an envelope in privacy, sign them, put them in an envelope, spray the envelope with Lysol, and then using gloves, give it back to a state trooper. So that's how we're going to get that done in a safe way. We are excited about the 5-star program. It's in draft. It's meaning it's out for comment now through the 4th or 5th of December. Meaning there is a draft form of what that would look like on the CDPHE website. Marshall, we're happy to have the team give you the link. There is comments coming in from public health authorities and businesses across the state. It's our typical way we do something. We put it out for comment. We try to integrate comments and roll it out. This would be optional for counties, Marshall. I think that might be the answer to the second part of your question. Nobody has to do any type of certification method. In fact, it's actually an additional step and work. So I think many counties will. Certainly Larimer is excited, and I know many counties are. They want to find a way where they can reward businesses that are going above and beyond in their COVID safety protocols. And there just has to be a safe, secure, formal way to do that. And I want to applaud Mesa County for their innovation in this area. As we figure out how this can work in other areas, I think it really shows the innovative spirit of Colorado. I'll turn it back over to see if our leaders would like to add something.
Thanks, Gov. I'll just jump in. And Marshall, I just wanted to highlight one thing that you said, which was how overwhelmingly bipartisan the last 3 days have been. It is an example of what Coloradans expect from their legislative leadership, from their elected officials. And, you know, Colorado really came together in the old-fashioned Colorado way to get the job done, to help people in every region of the state. And I hope it's now time for Washington to stand up and to lead, similar to what we just did over the last 3 days, to help people across the country, but to help people across the state of Colorado that we couldn't quite reach because we did the best we could, but we're obviously don't have the same amount of resources that the federal government does.
Next question.
Hello, Governor. Jesús Carrasquel from Noticias Univisión Colorado. I hope you're doing well with your recovery. En español, gobernador, ¿qué puede decirnos sobre el beneficio de desempleo para los residentes de Colorado que están sin trabajo y cuál sería la ayuda económica para las empresas del estado?
Algunas, más que 40,000 coloradenses ahora mismo están recibiendo unos $375 un mes especial en su cuenta. Más que 400,000 personas son personas quienes han desempleado durante un parte o todo de esta situación de emergencia. También estas acciones nuevas de la Cámara van a dar más ayuda para pagar su alquiler para su casa y también para sus cuentas de utilidad, de electricidad, porque nadie en nuestro estado debe ser oscuro o frío durante el invierno solo porque no tiene dinero porque estamos en una pandemia.
Hello, Governor Polis. This is Vinny Del Giudice at Bloomberg News in Denver. This is a COVID-19 question for the governor and the leadership. The economic outlook is uncertain. Has Colorado, in light of that, reached its limits to control the coronavirus spread through business restrictions, capacity caps, other rules? In New York, for example, they're estimating at least 65% of new infections are coming from small gatherings, public and private. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, look, we were thrilled to be joined by Dr. Fauci yesterday, who had strong words of advice for Coloradans to do a better job wearing masks, avoiding social gatherings, keeping your distance. These are the individual decisions that Coloradans make, and we hope that when they see the hospitals near capacity, they see the danger, Coloradans are increasingly making those right decisions. On the business side, we want to make sure that businesses can operate in a safe way, right? And many have gone above and beyond and implemented measures around social distancing and decals on the floor, and of course on the front lines of mask wearing to keep their employees and their customers safe. And I really want to applaud the vast majority of Colorado's business community for understanding the importance of taking COVID safety protocols seriously in the workplace. And I'll turn it over to legislative leadership.
This is Steve Fenberg in the Senate, and I guess I would just say, you know, it's hasn't been a mystery to any of us for a long time now on how to provide relief to businesses and get them up and running and get closer to normal, and that is to stop the spread of this virus in our communities. And that is what these public health orders are geared towards doing. That is what a lot of the work that we've been doing as a legislature has been geared towards. There's a lot we can do to relieve the suffering and get people back on their feet. But in the end, the only thing that's going to actually provide long-term relief is if we beat this virus. And we know what to do. We know we need to wear masks. We need to wash our hands. We need to keep our distance when appropriate, and do all of those things, whether at the government level, the business level, or out in the community, before the vaccine is widespread and available. So the best thing we can do is follow the advice of the public health experts and keep at it in these next couple of months when we expect the numbers to continue to be concerning.
Thank you, Governor. For some reason, your people seem to trust me to talk right after the last person does. I don't know why, but first of all, I want to thank you for wearing a red tie. I'm sure that's not on that's on purpose, and I'm glad to see you have less hair than I do. But I do want to ask you on Senate Bill 1. I know that's the bill that has to do with the 5-star program. What are your thoughts about what Representative Dave Williams called for on the floor of the House today about civil disobedience from areas? And do you agree with Representative Leslie Herod that the money from that bill should only go to those businesses that are complying with health orders?
So I'll let the legislators, I know that they worked hard on the actual language of that bill, and I'll let them address kind of what they decide to do. I will just say that, of course, every Coloradan has a responsibility to follow the law. And there's laws I disagree with and laws I agree with as a private citizen, as a congressman, as a governor, but we don't distinguish and we honor the law. We are a nation of laws. We are a state of laws. People can try to change the laws, and they do through the democratically elected process. It could be a municipal law in your city. It could be your county. It could be the state legislature. And that's a right we all have as Americans, but we also have a responsibility to follow the law. And I think that Representative Williams knows that.
Hey, Governor, Jesse at the Colorado Sun. Hope you and the first gentleman are feeling okay. I wondered if you could provide an update on just how you're feeling. And I know you mentioned yesterday that you were experiencing some symptoms, and I'm wondering if you might be able to share what those are. But regarding the special session, you know, folks throughout this have pointed to the fact that this money is not adequate to really turn things around in Colorado, that it's kind of just scratching the surface of the need ahead of Congress hopefully passing something. But I wonder what Colorado is going to do if Congress doesn't pass something. Is there some kind of plan in place to pass more legislation next year if the federal government doesn't come through?
Well, look, it's more about what is our nation going to do if Congress doesn't come through. Colorado might be in, thanks to the diligent work of the legislature and fiscal prudence, a slightly better situation than some states, and was able to do what we're doing now. Other states can't even do that. But unless the whole country can come together, this pandemic is likely to lead to a much more severe recession with a long tail, meaning that what is currently a rent crisis of people having trouble in staying in their homes and we're bridging for a little while could turn into a foreclosure crisis like we had in 2008, where there were boarded up homes for years before that was worked out. helping restaurants get through the next few months. We need help nationally, whether it's another PPP or restaurant-specific aid. But again, there could be boarded up restaurants on main streets if we don't come together and figure out how to solve this nationally. So I think through the work of the Democrats and Republicans in our legislature, they'd help buy Colorado some time. But by no means are we out of this. Even if it's never looking brighter for the potential on the health side, with a 94% effective vaccine literally being delivered to our state within weeks, as well as additional evidence that even those who contract it, who have the inoculation, develop a more mild case with a lower risk of hospitalization. Just wonderful news. But at the same time, we have to really bear down these next few weeks to avoid the spread of the virus, save lives, and enable an economic recovery. I'm doing better, thank you for all the thoughts and prayers that people have said. I can tell I'm doing better because the first few days I didn't really feel like going anywhere. Now I'm in that stage where like I can't wait till the quarantine ends and I can go out, and I have many more days till that occurs. But I wasn't even asking that question for a few days. I was a little hoarse and had some trouble sleeping. I'm doing fine now, feel good. And as I said, I'm starting to feel antsy, which is probably a good sign.
Hi, Governor. It's Mary Ann Goodland with Colorado Politics. I hate to rain on all this bipartisan love, but there was one instance during the special session that looked like it was going to be bipartisan love and then turned into a big mess. And this was over Senate Bill 1. The Senate Appropriations Committee unanimously approved a $3 million funding for ag events, not including the National Western Stock Show, but not limited to that. Why were you so opposed to that? Because the bill came to the floor with that amendment on there. Your legislative director was down there rallying people to vote against it. Next thing you know, it's gone. Why rural Coloradans and people in the ag industry are a little unhappy about this. Why were you so opposed to it?
We added $1 million in special aid for agriculture a few weeks ago that we're getting out through a Department of Ag. We want to do everything for everybody. I'm sure every legislator, all 100 of them, feel the same. At the end of the day, there are budgetary constraints, working with JBC, working with us. We wanted to make sure that it has to be something the state can afford, as you know. We're absolutely not only open to doing more work on a stimulus when the legislature returns. We have presented some ideas to them. I think rightly so. Many members of the JBC legislature want to see the December forecast before they move forward with any additional stimulus. I remain very optimistic that there will be additional funds that are one-time funds for stimulus in January. Still not enough for Colorado to get through this alone. We need federal help. But I'm optimistic that there will be a second phase. And of course, we would like to see some of that for our rural communities and to benefit ag as well. And if any legislators want to comment on that.
I would just say quickly, I mean, that addition in the Appropriations Committee really came about at the last minute and sort of came out of thin air. There was some discussion, and the sponsor of the amendment admitted that he made up the number, and it wasn't based on need or anything in specific, but he just thought it sounded like a good round number. And as we discussed it more when it came to the floor, just honestly a few moments later, there was anxiety and people were uneasy with just randomly injecting $3 million of taxpayer money into something that wasn't fully studied. The other aspect is that the events portion of the bill actually is applicable for ag events, and we actually felt like they were already eligible and could apply for those funds just like any other similar organization or event.
And speaking to the House, I'll speak quickly for the House. I think that there's a lot of interest in doing something for ag. We had those discussions over here. It was mostly a question of what is the right way to do it? Can we actually have time to talk to stakeholders, figure out the right amount? But you know, there's, I think, a lot of interest on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers to learn and hear a little bit more about how we can best respond during coronavirus to the agricultural community in rural Colorado, but let's actually figure out the right, time and way and amount and places and that sort of thing. This was, really about the stock show, and the state of Colorado has a huge COP that it pays out of the general fund every year to the stock show. So let's get it right, and let's include more people and have a little more time to figure it out.
I'll just add one more thing, not to belabor this point, but I think because you framed it, Marianne, based on the Senate conversations, one of the concerns I had earlier on to the majority leader's point is that this wasn't a lengthy discussion on how what areas could be impacted by that. Obviously, representing an area like Pueblo and the Colorado State Fair, I think we've got to be cognizant of how we support ag and be equitable. And so, I think for those reasons, our members understood that.
Hi, this is John Frank from the Colorado Sun. This is a question for Governor Polis, President Garcia, and Speaker-elect Garnett. I'm wondering if there's not enough money in these initial bills for all the people who qualify for this aid, will you commit to providing enough state dollars to help all who qualify?
I'll jump in first. John, thanks for that question. It's a good question. I think there's one, I'm proud of what we just got done. If there is more need than the dollars can stretch, then I think there's a couple things that we're gonna have to look at, right? We're gonna have to look at what's the federal government gonna do? All of a sudden, probably because they were watching what we were doing here in Colorado, talks have started again, which is encouraging. I hope they can somehow narrow the gap and get something done. So that's the first thing we have to look at. Then we have to continue to work with the Joint Budget Committee as they look at the December forecast and see where revenues are. And then three, we have to look at whether or not there is increased need. I think I speak for everyone in the legislature that if we continue to find ourselves in the economic hardship that we found ourselves in before the governor called this special session, that we'll all come together, look at all those factors and do what we can.
Yeah, I'll echo the same thing. There's not one of us who doesn't want to do more, right? But just like any household income and budget, we have a responsibility, and we've got to keep that in mind as we prepare for next year and all the needs that Colorado has, and our responsibility to appropriate it accordingly for all the various departments and all the functions of government here in Colorado. But you have my commitment, and I believe our members' commitment resoundingly to do the work like that was demonstrated today and over the last several days, that we're going to look at every option, look at every tool that we have at our disposal to make sure that we're doing our job. And I think the Speaker-elect raises a good point. Through that leadership, you're seeing others move in that direction, and I'm hopeful that Congress will hear and act quickly.
Hi there, this is Brandon with Fox 21 News in Colorado Springs. Understanding that you guys were trying to do as much with what you had, we got this $270 million pie, $37 million going to businesses. I'm wondering if there's some people who look at that thinking that small businesses are bearing the brunt of some of the restrictions right now. What led to that number? Could there have been more money for small businesses there?
So I think I just want you to go and look at the math again, because one of the single biggest pieces was the sales tax relief for restaurants and bars. And so that means it's the 2.9% they already collect up to $2,000 a month that they will not have to pay the state. It frees it up from their usage. So for every restaurant above a certain size, you're talking of about $8,000 directly to them. Some of the smaller restaurants, it might be $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. In addition, waiving their fees for next year, liquor fees, restaurant licensing fees, that's another $1,200, $1,500. So when you look at the division, I think you'll see an equitable division between the small businesses that are hit the hardest, restaurants, bars, those affected by capacity restrictions, and the people who need it the most to pay their rent, to keep their electricity on, to keep their heating on, childcare, et cetera.
Yeah, I think the total amount for small business was around $105 million, actually. And, there was a piece for disaster emergency, which obviously is super important for the state to continue to be able to pay for testing and things like that for people. And then the assistance for individuals. So but around $100 million for small business total.
Hi, Governor Polis. This is Audra Streetman at CBS 4 News. The CDC recently revised its guidelines, reducing the quarantine period from 2 weeks to 7 to 10 days. Our question is how this new guidance might impact Coloradans, specifically schools and hospitals.
Yeah, it's welcome guidance. We had been aware that it was forthcoming for some time based on the science. What this new guidance means is that there is a 10-day quarantine. If you are exposed, if you're going to develop symptoms of COVID, you're almost certain to do it in 10 days. Usually it's, by the way, 3 to 5 days, but we have it longer because there are some 7, 8, 9, even 10 days. But after 10 days, the quarantine would be cleared. There is a way now that CDC has articulated where after 7 days from an exposure, you can then take a test on that 7th day. You might not get it back till the 8th or 9th day. And if that is negative, then your quarantine can end. This will help with staffing issues in a way that does not reduce safety, maintains the strong public safety we need for our schools, for our hospitals, for retail, for other areas that have had trouble being able to maintain a workforce while honoring the necessary quarantine restrictions. So we're grateful for the direction the science is. The science has pointed this way for a while, and we're satisfied that it's been confirmed by CDC.
Governor, this is Ed Seelover with the Denver Business Journal. Most business groups, when you talk to them, say they are grateful for anything they could get from this session, but what happened here really just helps on the margins. As you've got another month and a half before the session starts now, are there bigger picture ideas that you, and maybe I'll open this to the legislators too, that you all hope to advance that you couldn't do with the limited funding in this session that maybe looks at business aid in a different way?
We would be open to that. I think along with the JBC, we would say, let's make sure we see the December forecast first and make sure that the money that we think is there. But as we talk about one-time stimulus, we would also, we talk about shovel-ready projects, jobs, but we would be open to additional work to help our businesses on a one-time basis as well.
And I'll just add, Ed, there's a lot of ideas that are going around. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors that we're going to have to look at before we go into session, but I think there's good ideas out there around other things that would provide immediate relief, whether or not that's business personal property tax or other things that the legislature could consider as we continue to figure out how to make sure the small businesses, which are the engine of our economy, survive these next couple months, which are going to be hard.
And I'd like to add, Ed, I think you highlight the fact that it's, Colorado's never going to be able to provide the same level of assistance that Congress can. And the reason we are even able to do this is because with the stimulus, the CARES Act money, et cetera, that Congress did provide to the state, it really kept people getting paychecks, kept them paying income tax, kept them buying things in stores and generating sales tax. So, it had an effect for our own state budget. So, we did what we can, but again, just have to highlight, we really need Congress to act. And I think it's exciting that a bipartisan group of, senators and Congress people are back in Washington really trying to hammer it out, because that's what Colorado needs and every other state needs as well.
Hi, all. Andy Kenny at Colorado Public Radio. And I wanted to return to the idea of conditioning some of that state funding on how well the local and county governments are complying with state health orders. To Governor Polis, I wanted to ask if that was a strategy that you supported in the future, that you would like to encourage the legislature to continue using. And to the lawmakers, I wanted to ask, how much should we expect that clause in that SB1 to actually be used? Is that really going to affect whether, say, a Weld County is able to get stimulus money to their businesses? Thank you.
I'll just reiterate that everybody needs to follow the laws of Colorado, whether you live in Weld County, Elbert County, Denver, Rio Blanco. It doesn't matter where you are. We apply and enforce the law, and most businesses and individuals are doing the right thing. And if we can step it up and do even better, we can get this virus under control, and we can return to more normalcy sooner rather than later.
I would just add real quick. This is Steve Fenberg. We've talked at length on this press conference and over the last couple of days that this isn't enough money for the need that is out there. The idea is that this money should go towards those who are most in need. And that's why the bill was written the way it was, to say that those who are under the most severe capacity restrictions should be prioritized in terms of where this money goes. And if you are a business operating in a county that has told you that you don't have to follow the law, you can be at full capacity or more capacity than what is allowed under the public health orders, you actually don't have as much of a need as someone who is following the law because they are doing the right thing and have fewer customers. So I think part of it is that we want to make sure this money goes towards the businesses that are following the rules and have taken a financial hit because of that, because they're doing their part. But also there is an aspect of this that, yes, as the governor said, people are expected to follow the law. If folks want to have law and order, but then at the same time are flaunting publicly and bragging about how they're not following the public health orders, I think there's a disconnect there. And so, yes, this is about making sure that the counties that are following the rules and putting in a good faith effort have the ability to help out the businesses that are suffering because of those regulations. And that I think it is an important part. This isn't just simply about disagreeing with the governor or Democrats. This is about taking actions that potentially put people's lives at risk. I would also add, Andy, that there was an amendment to allow cities to apply for this funding if their county wasn't in compliance, but the city was. So keep that in mind. There is a way to make sure that the cities that are in good faith effort and their businesses are compliant, that they still have access to the funds.
So thank you. That's our final questions. Thank you to all of the members of the General Assembly. We're joined by leadership of the majority party. We thank by name the leadership of the minority party, but I want to thank all 100 members of both parties for their hard work and for really, they weren't planning on this. Many of them had other plans, other things they were going to do. They all saw the need. They responded to the call of the moment. They really fulfilled their responsibilities as elected officials and public servants to make this very difficult winter in the history of Colorado, the nation, and the world more bearable for our small businesses, for those struggling to keep the heat and the lights on, and to be able to pay their rent. So thank you to Colorado for stepping up, and we continue to call on Washington to act to help our country. Thank you.